Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our third webinar for 2025. I am Dr. Loy Parks. I am the Leadership Development and Institutional Strengthening Specialist with the Caribbean Center for Development Administration, popularly known as CARICAD. And today we have a very interesting topic, a topic that I believe affects all of us, and if not you, definitely me personally. Human connection in a virtual world. And we have the wonderful Mrs. Yolanda Lee as our guest presenter today. I will introduce her in full a little later on. But for those of you who always come regularly to our webinars, welcome to you. Without you, it will be all for naught. And for those who are here for the very first time, where have you been? Welcome to you. And particularly if you are joining for the first time, we want you to know what are our rules of engagement, our ground rules, for you to have the best possible virtual learning experience. And you want to remove your distractions, all right? Distractions are your enemies here for your virtual learning experience. So you want to close all your software applications on your device apart from Zoom, right? Because clearly that's going to kick you out. You want to mute your phones, right? I know many of you will be joining from your offices given the time of this webinar. And so you may not be able to mute your office phone, but a lot of times, if you look at it, there is a ringer button and you can actually turn the ringer down. So I recommend you do that. You want to also know, we're here talking about human connection. So we're not against human connection, but your colleagues can be a distraction to your learning. So you want to remind them, hey, this is my learning hour. Just allow me that hour to just lean in and to get all that I can from this learning experience. Now, thankfully, in the Caribbean, our internet connectivity has improved significantly. Still not always where it is, where we want it to be. But if you have an internet cable available, then it's always a good idea to put that in. Now, for our webinars, we don't necessarily insist that people use their microphones. You don't absolutely have to. So a lot of the communication is via chat, which many of you have started already. However, there is going to be opportunity for you to raise your hand if you wish and to give your input. And so if you want to do that, then you want to ensure that you have a good working headset microphone that we can hear you. All right. And I know because so many of you are repeat, I don't want to say visitors, I like to think that we're family, right? We're part of this wonderful community of practice of leaders, and we are supporting each other in our ongoing learning and development. So no, many of you already know that we always do this, right? We always reach out. We want to know, where are you joining us from today? It might be any one of our member states across the Caribbean. It might be outside of our member states. It might be outside of the Caribbean. It doesn't matter. Tell us in the chat, where are you joining us from today? Right? And so prior to the recording, we had started to acknowledge some people, and there's some others. Orlando is joining from Jamaica. And in particular, if you're joining us for the very first time, I would love to know that you're joining us for the first time. Roxanne is joining from BVI, Sonia Evans from Jamaica, Winisia from BVI, Marcy. I have not seen you in this space for a while, Marcy. Welcome, Marcy, from Belize. Alison Flax Archer from the Ministry of Education in BVI, one of our alumni. Welcome, Alison. Lavon from BVI. Yes, another alumni. Jacqueline from not just Tortola, sweet Tortola. Yes, if you've never been to the BVI, let me tell you that Tortola is sweet indeed. Aris, also alumni from BVI. Camille Bright is joining for the first time from Jamaica. Welcome, Camille. Gail is from BVI is joining. Daphne also from BVI, Maria Mason Roberts. She's one of our associate consultants here at CARICAD, joining from Trinidad and Tobago. Great. Thank you all so very much. So keep telling us in the chat where you're joining us from. I am joining from Jamaica, even though CARICAD has its headquarters in Barbados, but I'm joining from Jamaica. Michelle Darcil from Trinidad, Ministry of Public Administration. And she tell you this, she's joining from the land of Calypso and Steel Pan, sweet tea and tea. Yes, represent, Michelle, represent. Nadine Brown is indicating she's joining from Jamaica. Welcome. Olympia joining from St. Lucia. Olympia, all things being equal, I should be in your island next month. So keep telling us where you're joining us from today. And I want us to do a little bit of sharing. I always like to do this because it gives the presenter an idea of where is our headspace at. And so I came up with these two questions that I wanted to use the chat and to share. And if you want to raise your hand, we'll see it and unmute you. And these are the two questions. I've started with the first question. What questions or concerns do you have in relation to this topic about human connection in a virtual world? What questions or concerns do you have? And I thought about it because I must admit I was projecting, because I must admit I have some concerns myself. I'm wondering, will I be replaced by artificial intelligence? It's a real concern that I have, yes. But then I thought, no, Loy, that is coming from a mindset of fear and a fixed mindset. And so I thought, no, we need to have another question. And so, not to negate if you have concerns or questions, but I thought maybe that's not the case for some of you. Maybe it's what excites you about this particular topic. You know, maybe you're seeing opportunities. And so, let's spend a little time in the chat. So, Alice says she is concerned. She doesn't want to be left behind. Yes, I totally get it. Simone says, I love the ease of access with virtual meetings and webinars, but how do we connect with our audience? I like that. I like that, Simone. So you're seeing the opportunity, you're seeing the risk, and so you're not saying do away with virtual, but how do we, what strategies, what tools do we use to connect with our audience, right? And if I could quickly say, as somebody, so I actually have been trained in, how we do facilitation and training in the virtual space. And you notice what I do, I will try ask you where you're from, connect with you, try and remember names. That's part of it, that you have to be very deliberate about making human connection, right? So there's some other comments here. So Gail says she embraces it. She says, I love that I can join with persons even now from a host of countries while on my job. No, for real. Being able to work virtually has allowed me to have a job. Yes, if I did not know how to deliver training virtually, certainly when we had the COVID-19 pandemic, we would have just closed down. So there are benefits indeed. So Whitney is excited to learn how to enjoy and make the best use of both worlds. I like that. Joyanne, that was Whitney. Yes, Joyanne says, I like the use of virtual, but at times our boundaries are blurred or maybe ignored. I like the interaction and seeing people. Yes. Whitney says she has a concern. How do we create balance? Cheryl, I agree with Simone. More and more, we are embracing the digital stroke virtual space. But how do we continue connecting and focusing with our customers and our clients? Indeed. And I tell you something, it's not just our customers and clients. I know we're all here in work capacities, but we're all here as people. I think about how do I relate to my family? All of my siblings live overseas, right? They're not in Jamaica. So how do we connect when we cannot see each other that frequently in person. Yeah. And we are doing digital communication. How do we do that? How do I connect with my cousins and nieces and nephews? When I was growing up, we went to the country in summer and we hung out with our cousins and we climbed trees and picked fruits and played, hopscotch. And I don't know if you have it in other Caribbean countries, dandy shandy, right? What do we do now? Yeah. Here are some other comments. Alimfa says, I love how I joined with persons anywhere in the world. Yes, such a seize the opportunity in it. Indeed. And just looking here, I think I've covered all of the comments and that we've had so far. So let me tell you just a little bit about, and you can keep your comments coming, but let me tell you a little bit about the work that we do at CARICAD for those who might be new. We are 45 years old this year. We are an arm of CARICOM and we serve 17 member states in total. And we support member states really in their area of public sector transformation through capacity building initiatives as well as various forms of technical assistance. And so what you see here on the screen is just sharing the main areas in which we provide capacity building and technical assistance. Areas such as leadership development, that's my particular area, but we also provide a lot of technical assistance around policy development, strategic planning, business process analysis, digital government, change management, human resource management and development, organizational development and design. And in addition to the technical assistance and the capacity building, we also develop a number of tools to help individuals and member states in the area of transformation, right? So if you go to our website at caricad.net, you will see that we have a number of tools that we have developed, things like our business continuity planning template. And if you look at our digital explainer series, I mean, we have tools such as tools for succession planning, tools for HR policy development, other kinds of tools for public sector transformation as well. And very key among our tools is our public service charter, or the charter for the public service, which is really a common conceptual framework that we have developed to guide not only our work and how we approach our work, but it also guides the way in which we approach technical assistance. And it's a framework that member states can use to guide how they set up, monitor, evaluate, and design their public sector transformation initiatives. So again, you can go to our website to learn more about that. But in essence, this conceptual framework has 6 pillars: capacity building, standards, governance, accountability, openness, and modernized legislation. And like I said, you can go to our website to learn more. And so I'm going to now introduce you to not only the topic, but to our guest today. And why this topic? We have been doing a lot of work in CARICAD with our member states around digital transformation. Some of you would recall the collaborations that we have on an ongoing basis with the United Nations Department for Economic and Social Affairs. And we are continuing to do that work. We're rolling out a lot of workshops and intervention across the region. Next week, we'll be in Bahamas. Next month, we're doing workshops with UNDESA in St. Lucia. And we'll be doing a regional workshop in Barbados in May that we are in the process of planning. But even as we look at digital transformation as a vehicle for improving public sector transformation, improving service delivery, making gains in the implementation of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, we are recognizing that there is a contradiction that has emerged in our world, right? That we are seeing growing levels of digital connection, but growing levels of human disconnection. We are seeing an increase in things like loneliness. In the UK, they actually have a government ministry set up to address this issue of loneliness. So, as you saw in the comments that you made, technology promises a lot of benefits. It also comes with this particular risk. And so we thought we would partner with our guest today, Mrs. Yolanda Lee, who is Senior Lecturer and Interim Programme Coordinator for the Masters in Counselling Program at the Hugh Wynter Institute for Reproductive and Healthcare and Endoscopic Surgery. This is at the UWI Mona campus. She's a distinguished professional with over 25 years experience, right, in the field of counseling, management, and mental health. And Yolanda, while I introduce you, you can go ahead and start sharing your screen. But a little bit more about Yolanda. She has an unwavering passion for empowering individuals to reach their fullest potential. That has been the cornerstone of her career. She has a master's in counseling, a Bachelor of Science in psychology, both from the University of the West Indies. And she's really cultivated a wealth of expertise as a professional counselor, guidance counselor, therapist, and a dedicated advocate for personal and social development. And so I could think of no one better to help us to navigate this topic. How do we maintain human connection in a digital world? Yolanda, I am so happy that you consented to be with us here today, and I hand over the floor to you. So you unmute.
My sincere apologies. Good morning, and thank you so much for that wonderful welcome, Dr. Parks. Thank you so much to your community, your CARICAD community, for inviting me here this morning. All of that said, one of my biggest claims to fame is that I just love people and I just love interacting and helping us to become the absolute best versions of who we can be. And so psychology and counseling and mental health sort of chose me, and I have just graciously accepted the gift that was given to me. So it is my absolute pleasure to be with you this morning. I hope we will engage and it will be very impactful. All right, so as Dr. Parks has been sharing, we have gone through one of the most digital advanced ages that we have been through, right? COVID, where everything shut down and everything became this black screen, this black box in front of us, all right? So in an era where technology has revolutionized the way that we connect, why do so many of us still feel disconnected, right? If you could get everybody at your fingertip, which is what it is now, why is it that we still feel so isolated and alone? According to a study in 2023, 60% of people reported feeling lonelier despite being more digitally connected than ever before, right? And most of us have our phones. Most of us have a phone that can call our phone, right? We have ways of being in touch, or phones or laptops, your regular computer, all of that now. There's so many ways that we can be in touch with each other. Unfortunately, there are still feelings of isolation, depression, anxiety, and being alone. And let's dive into that a little bit. All right, so I wanted us to have a quick icebreaker. I want us to reflect on the idea of human connection in our virtual or digital age. Even though we're all in different physical spaces, even right now, we are united by the same basic human needs to connect with each other, right? So I want you to think of a time where you had an interaction with somebody, positive interaction or negative, over the last month or so. It could be virtual or it could be in person. It could have been a conversation, a shared moment, a simple act of kindness. All right, so I want you to just take maybe 20 seconds to think about an interaction that you have had with somebody. All right. And as you were thinking, what made that moment stand out for you and how did it make you feel? So the memory of it, thinking about it, how does it make you feel? All right. And if anybody would like to share, I'd be very happy to hear your response. I'll give you another 30 seconds or so just to think it through. And then I will begin. I will share mine.
So I think there is a response in the chat, Yolanda.
Oh, okay.
Right.
All right.
So one person says they had an interaction with a colleague in person, which wasn't positive, as the
Mhm.
person appeared condescending and dismissive.
Oh, no. Oh,
Oh
no. I'm
no,
sorry to
indeed.
hear that. I hope it resolved itself. Or there will be an opportunity for you to get some resolution there. I'm sorry about that, about hearing about that, but thanks for sharing. All right, so I will share. There were two that I was hoping to speak about, but on my walk to my office this morning, I actually, from the parking lot to my office, I was walking by and I saw a lady walking apparently to, so I work up by the hospital, so generally you won't see persons in a good mood, right, being at the hospital. However, the lady just really looked miserable. So, you know, in Jamaica, where we said your face is just very sour, she was just absolutely unpleasant looking. That never stops me, I'll tell you. So when I saw her, I went, "Good morning," as usual, right, with a smile. And she stopped and she looked up, and the biggest smile came across her face. And she went, "Good morning, sunshine." Now, I don't know the lady, but luckily I was able to get a smile out of her. I don't know her situation or circumstance, but whatever was going on prior to my good morning changed into at least a moment where she could smile and interact and engage with somebody pleasantly, aside from whatever it was that was causing her to perhaps not be in the best mood that
Yeah.
morning. And, you know, go ahead, Dr. Parks.
Okay, because I'm just saying some persons are sharing in the chat,
Oh,
responding.
okay,
Yeah.
sure.
So Malika says, a warm and happy feeling after reconnecting with my family after some time virtually. That's a lovely one. So Maria said, I had lunch with a friend. She had a heart attack in January. We were in constant contact virtually, but seeing her, making a physical connection made so much difference. Esther said, I met up with a friend from high school, a great feeling and nostalgic. Nataki says, connecting with an old friend via WhatsApp. It's good to reconnect and update. It was a warm memory. Sabrina said, I had an in person contact last week and it was very refreshing. The simple phrase, I see you, followed by a compliment, was amazing. And Whitney says, visual interaction via text. I was left unsure of the person's feelings and emotions due to the loss of nonverbal cues. And Gail
Mhm.
said, I have colleagues on chat, however, we long for that in person connection.
Thank you so much. And actually, that is the biggest thing between the biggest difference between virtual interaction and physical interaction. There are many things that you can't feel. You can't feel the energy in a room with a black box in front of you. I will share another example of mine where there's a gentleman that I used to pass at one of our stoplights every morning, and I would, you know, say good morning. He was homeless and was begging, and I would give him breakfast, a sandwich, an apple, whatever I had with me, I would share with him, and this went on for years. And one morning I was passing, and I had zero. I didn't have any cash to give him. I didn't have any breakfast to share. And I went, Lord, Please don't let me stop at this stoplight because I do not have anything this morning to share with him. Of course, there were other plans at work. So I'm going through and the red light stops me right at the front. And of course, being the, proper law-abiding citizen that I will say I am on this platform, I stopped at my red light. And the gentleman approaches the car and he's limping because he had an impediment. And he starts limping towards my car and I'm going, boy, Lord, I really have nothing to share with this young man this morning. And I felt terrible. The young man approaches me. I put my window down and I say, boy, morning, let's call him Sam. Morning, Sam. I'm so sorry. I don't have anything this morning. And to my absolute shock and surprise, Sam said, no, 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 miss, hold on. And he bends down and he takes up 2 ripe mangoes out of a bag that he had and he offered me mangoes. So out of his absolute zero, he now wanted to share something with me. I have not been able to replicate that sort of feeling in any digital or virtual connection since then. And so one of the things that I want us to focus on in our talk this morning is, yes, having the digital platforms and the social interactions are tools. However, they cannot replace our human connection or human beings. All right. We are human beings, not human doings. We are people that be, that exist, and we need each other in order to get that done. All right. Is anybody else? I see a lot of chats, a lot of comments coming up in the chat. All right, I hope we can talk a little bit more about that, but I will be moving on. All right, so let's think about what it takes let's think about those moments for a minute and the ways we maintain our human connections, especially in a world that's increasingly virtual. Sometimes a quick text or a Zoom call can still carry a very powerful message of warmth and care, right? Today, we'll dive into how we can nurture that sense of connection and build stronger relationships despite the digital or virtual space between us. So some of the key themes that I want to focus on today would be the impact of digital communication, the psychology of human connection, and strategies that we can use to foster genuine relationships in a digital world. So we're not dismissing digital at all. We're not dismissing virtual. As many of you have shared, as many of us have experienced, it certainly is a very useful tool that will help us to reach communities, global communities, right? Persons from all over the world at the very same time, right? We're able to interact, we're able to establish relationships and form bonds and friendships using this tool. However, it still is not able to replace what we can, the rapport that we can build, the bonds that develop because of human connections and associations. And we will figure out why. All right, so we're looking at the digital paradox. So we're more connected, yet more isolated. We can instantly reach anyone, yet face-to-face interactions have declined. While platforms like Instagram and TikTok keep us entertained, they also create an illusion of connection that lacks emotional depth. Everybody knows this song. We do it for the love. We don't do it for the likes. I'm trying not to sound as Jamaican as it is, right? So we are bombarded every single day on TikTok, on Insta, on Facebook, on Snapchat, on Twitter, on X, on all of the platforms with persons living a life that may or may not be real. We have heard several persons, comedians, famous people who appear to have their lives going perfectly. In fact, we look at many of the ways that they have shared their lives, their new car, house, children, wife number 4, 5, husband number 6. And we look at their lives and say, wow, look at them. Are they happy? I'm not sure if you're familiar with Stitch. He was a comedian and a dancer. He and his wife were dancers. He used to be on the Helen DeGeneres show, and Stitch appeared, by all accounts, to be happy, right? The definition of what we think happy looks like. Unfortunately, Stitch took his own life, right? So the digital pictures that we saw, what was represented on the social platform, is not necessarily what is going on. And unfortunately, we have many persons that see those things and believe that that's reality. And so it starts to get a little confusing about what's real, what's authentic, and what is a facade. All right. The psychology behind loneliness is that human beings are wired for authentic social interactions, eye contact, touch, shared experiences, which digital communication often lacks. In a setting like this, I can see your faces, although many of you have your cameras off. I can see your faces, but am I really able to engage with you? I can see some of the facial expressions that you would have, but am I able to see that you're tightly holding your hands together because you're anxious or nervous? Am I able to see that your palms are sweaty or your feet are tapping? I'm not able to see those things in this setting. And all of those things tell me something about our interaction and helps me to better understand what you are feeling so that I will be able to adjust or assist if I need to. All right, so that's just an example. We are not social creatures just in a trivial sense. We like not just because we like company. We are social creatures because in an obvious way, we depend on each other. One of the things that I've found throughout my many conversations, group interaction, regardless of the crises or the trauma that is affecting us, there is strength in support. There is strength in somebody being beside you, holding your hand, putting a hand on the shoulder, just nodding. There is strength and there is healing, and there's even the message of hope that comes out of just those interactions. Just having someone look at you without judgment or criticism, but look at you with support and well wishes and comfort, just to be present, just to be there. Those things in itself offer healing and can help us to move through some of the worst things ever to befall us in life. And those things cannot be, you can certainly have a global response like that, but those things are felt by actual human interaction. All right, we are more social in more elemental ways. Simply to exist as a normal human being requires interactions with other people. In fact, we define ourselves based on those interactions. We're somebody's wife, we're somebody's daughter, somebody's mother, somebody's uncle, somebody's aunt, leader, head of department, permanent secretary, prime minister. We define ourselves many of the times because of those interactions. And those interactions would not happen in isolation. So I want to talk a little bit about the impact of digital communication. All right, so we have an increased accessibility, but we have reduced depth. So digital platforms allow for instant global communication. But what is the quality of those interactions? It often lacks depth due to the absence of non-verbal cues. I believe one of our respondents spoke to that earlier. Again, you can't see very much from this. You can see what I'm doing with my face. You can see what I'm doing with my mouth and my eyes and that sort of thing. But how do you feel person's energy? You know, how do you realize that somebody is fearful? And what can you do from this black box to the next to help them to reduce that fear or anxiety? Yes, it can be done. And there are actually telemental health interactions that happen, and many persons benefit from them. So it's not to discount those things at all. It is one of the things that my MSc program actually teaches the student counselors. However, should it replace physical interaction and rapport and comfort to our fellow humans? We will see. The rise of superficial engagement through likes, emojis, and short messages replace meaningful conversations, right? I was having a discussion with someone the other day, and the person went SMH in my physical, verbal conversation. And I was taken aback a little bit because SMH means shaking my head, right? In a text or WhatsApp space. The person is speaking with me in person, and they went, SMH. And I went, interesting. So the digital communication, the digital way of communicating is even trickling into our physical ways of communicating. And that in itself is a whole different discussion for us to have. There's a dictionary for WhatsApp messaging, right? There's several phrases and words and emojis that express several things that perhaps we would never be able to verbally communicate. But then we are losing the art of identifying our emotions and being able to communicate them accurately. That again is a discussion for a whole nother time. But the second thing here, the impact of digital communication, is that social media an illusion and the illusion of connection. As I shared before, Stitch, that had a life that looked pretty okay, looked pretty awesome, actually. We have several celebrities who have decided to take their own lives. And again, us looking on from the outside, their lives seemed pretty okay. You know, in fact, some of us may have wanted to switch lives if it was possible. But studies show that heavy social media use is correlated with increased feelings of loneliness and anxiety. Social comparison theory suggests that seeing curated highlights of others' lives can lead to dissatisfaction and decreased self-esteem. So you compare yourself with the lives that you're seeing in front of you and probably wondering why you haven't achieved this or wondering why your life is not looking like that life. Who says it's accurate? Who says it's true? Right? And even if it is, we each have our own path to follow, right? No two leaves are the same. No two persons are the same. You have a purpose. You have your own individual plan. There's a blueprint for your life, which no one else can live because it's your blueprint. All right. And number three, we have the decline of the face-to-face communication. So research indicates that digital communication reduces empathy due to the lack of immediate emotional feedback. The overuse of texting and messaging platforms can hinder the development of strong interpersonal skills. And as I shared in the example just now, there are times when the digital text starts coming in to the actual face-to-face interaction between humans. The LOL, I'll give you a joke. My mom, Lord rest her soul, I would always message my mom and talk with her on the phone and that sort of a thing. And my mom would end with LOL, you know, whatever the message. I love you, mom. See you tomorrow. Happy Mother's Day. I'm out, you know, whatever the message, my mom would send me back LOL. And I'm going, but this woman laughing out loud at me, telling her that I love her and pouring out my heart to her. Come on. Right? So eventually I said to her, I said, Mom, what is this laugh out loud thing? And my mom says, what do you mean laugh out loud? I said, most nights after we've done our prayers and I've tucked you into bed and we've exchanged our little messages, you end with LOL. It means laugh out loud. My mother goes, no, it does not. It means lots of love. So again, there can be some disconnection, right? Some miscommunication in the digital sphere, right? You can read something, you may not be aware of how I interpret what you have written, but I'm interpreting it, and this is the message I walk away with. That my mother was laughing out loud at me every time I told her how dare she was to me. But I'm glad we got that cleared up before it was too late. All right, and then we have the digital overload and the psychological effects. So you're looking at the constant stream of notification that creates an always on culture, leading to mental fatigue. Increased screen time is linked to anxiety, stress, and reduced attention spans. Is anybody else feeling overwhelmed? Is anybody in the audience feeling tired, just feeling drained sometimes and not understanding why there are these absolute feelings of exhaustion? Screen time can do that. It can also cause brain fog, right? So you don't forget things as easily. I'm sorry, you don't remember things as easily as you used to. You forget them, right? And because you are constantly stimulated, it becomes harder to relax, to rest, to sleep, and therefore you feel constantly tired and exhausted. All right, I want us to look a little bit now. So we've looked at the digital side, virtual side. I want us to look now at the science of human connection. So why we need connection. Human beings, as I said earlier, are inherently social creatures. We exist in relation to others. The neuroscience behind connection. Oxytocin, also known as a bonding hormone, is released through physical touch and in-person interactions. It helps us to build trust and establish emotional closeness. Relationships shape our mental and emotional well-being. Strong social bonds increase happiness, reduce stress, and contribute to longer life expectancy. Have you ever hugged somebody and the hug was exactly what your back pain, your headache, your exhaustion, your irritation needed? And I'm just saying a few of some of the challenges that we face. it has just been that sort of a day. The car wouldn't start, the taxi man bad drove you, your boss has given you an unrealistic deadline, children are just out of whack, work is just absolutely stressful, and you see a friend, you see your husband, you see a sister, a sibling, and they embrace you. The type of hug that not only reminds you that you are not alone, but allows you to take a big exhale and just soak in the support. Those are the type of human connections that cannot happen on a digital world. All right, there's actually a study that says we need 8 hugs per day, right? Persons who are exposed to hugs have far less depression in their lives and anxiety and stress. Because in those moments of those hugs, you're able to exhale, you're able to release tension and stress, right? I call those people sunshine people. So it was interesting when that lady this morning said sunshine. But they're persons who, once you're in their presence, being on the phone as well, or being on a Zoom, it can happen as well, but just engaging with them reminds us to take it easy, to exhale, and again, gives us a little hope and encouragement to move on. The impact of digital communication on emotional intelligence. There's a lack of real-time feedback, which reduces the ability to read emotional cues. Empathy declines. There's a 40% reduction in empathy levels among college students over the last 2 decades due to increased screen interactions. So persons are not able to read the room. Persons are not able to feel the energy of the persons they're interacting with. Persons are not able to see if what they have said has triggered a response or a reaction in the person in front of them. And therefore, it becomes a bit of a challenge to adjust accordingly. One of the main things that my profession has taught me is do not start an interaction if I do not have time for that interaction. I do not ask somebody, how are you, unless I have a time to stop and listen for the response, right? A part of this digital and virtual world, it feels rushed, very, very rushed. Everybody's rushing to do something, meet a deadline, get in time for a meeting, mark papers, submit reports to the board. There's always a rush, right? So I generally do not ask a question that I do not have time to listen for the response. You will not see me go, oh, hi, how are you? And I'm off. Because your response could be something that I need to engage with. Your response could be, oh, life's not going so well, and I think I just shouldn't be here. And you go, okay, good, good, you take care then. No. I have intentionally changed my interaction with human beings, with everybody. If I do not have the time to stop and listen to your response, you're not going to get that question from me. You will get, oh, it's so good to see you, or I'm happy I ran into you, or I hope you have a good day, or enjoy the rest of your day, or that blouse looks lovely on you, or that pants looks amazing, or that cologne smells fantastic. However, if I stop and ask how you are doing, I ensure that I have the time to listen to the response. And if I need to engage or interact further, I'm also able to do so. And then the fourth thing that I have in terms of the science of human connection is the psychological theories on connection. So you may have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It speaks to belonging as a fundamental human need. It speaks to being part of a community. It speaks to being a part of a group. It speaks to connection. It speaks to belonging. It speaks to being as it relates to others. There's also the attachment theory, which speaks to how we form and maintain relationships. So a lot of this is coming from our childhood experiences, where our parents may have been around, may not have been around. Our attachment to them has a lot to do on our attachments and our establishment of relationships as adults. Emotional contagion. So it speaks to the way human emotions spread effectively in physical interactions. Have you ever been in a room and one person starts yawning? It might be that the room was just a boring environment, but we'll leave that aside for now. And somebody else starts yawning. When you're walking past somebody and they look up and there's a smile, it's almost automatic that you smile too. That's what emotional contagion is. That being around people, you will actually absorb and respond in kind to the emotion that is being shared. All right, so just some psychological principles, which I have alluded to in the previous slide. You look at mirroring. So mirroring is a subconscious replication of another's body language and emotions, which strengthens rapport. So someone is sitting there and they are sitting with their hands like this, and you, without even recognizing it, start mirroring how the person is sitting. And the person feels more comfortable and more at ease in seeing that done. And so it strengthens the bond that you're making at that time. The emotional contagion, as I spoke about before, it's how being around others influences our moods. As I said, that can have a negative and a positive impact, but it's also something for us to recognize that if we are with persons who are always angry and unhappy and miserable and critical, those things will seep into your psyche and who you are, and you may start behaving and recognizing a lot of what they recognize instead of being appreciative and grateful for what you have. All right, that's a whole nother discussion. And then you have the 7-38-55 rule, which is 7% of communication is words, 38% is your tone of voice, and 55% is your body language, right? So it's not just about hearing my voice. It's not just about seeing me. It's about seeing all of me and what all of me is saying and communicating to you. The digital conversations often strip all of these things away because the nonverbal cues are a little harder to see, right? So conversations lack these elements and therefore may actually lack the emotional connections that these elements allow. So as I'm about to wrap up and engage in questions and answers, strategies, how do we foster genuine relationships in a digital world? So we're not saying that your digital tools and platforms are useless. What we are saying is it's a tool and it can be used to engage on a much wider screen, on a much wider audience base. However, in order to still have your human connections, even in the digital world or the virtual world, you should prioritize face-to-face interaction. So make in-person interactions a priority wherever possible. Schedule regular meetings with friends, family, and colleagues. Engage in group activities that promote meaningful connections, sports, volunteering, community events, gardening, hobbies, learning to sew, candle making, learning to paint, whatever it is, right? Prioritize face-to-face interactions. So even though you may have your interactions like this, see if you can still maintain some human one-on-one connection with family, with persons who you consider important. Okay? Enhance digital communication with authenticity. So use video calls instead of text for deeper connection. Send personalized voice notes instead of relying on emojis or short replies. I tell you something, particularly for those of us who have relatives that are getting on in age, those voice notes become priceless, priceless memories when they're no longer here with us physically. So enhance that digital communication by still inputting some human connection to it, right? So a voice note as opposed to just a message, just typing a message. The third thing is to practice active and mindful listening. So we're not just listening to respond, we're listening to understand. And that takes a little more time than just responding. All right, just reacting. You want to listen to what is being said. You want to watch what is being communicated so that you can respond appropriately. So you want to give undivided attention during conversations. How many times have we sat at a dinner table, gone to a function, and persons are not even looking at each other? Everybody's head is down because they are sharing with somebody who may be across the table from them, something happening in the same environment that nobody's paying attention to because they're messaging each other about the environment. I'm pretty sure we have all been in rooms like that, and we are losing the moments because we are busy trying to capture it on our devices. We're trying to capture it to each other without experiencing it, right? And we lose the moments. And once those moments are gone, it's very hard to get it back. Use open-ended questions to encourage meaningful discussions. So how was your day? Good. Yeah, tell me a little bit more about that. Did you have a good day? Yes. Okay. What made it good? You know, so that you encourage deeper discussions and meetings. I remember at the dinner table was when my husband, my daughter, and I would have conversations about the day, about this. Of course, we were able to eat mostly in the afternoon at dinner, and then on weekends it was breakfast. So we'd all be there at breakfast. We'd have our coffee or cocoa and sit there, and then our conversations would start. Even to this day, my husband and I still sit at our dining table for hours sometimes, speaking endlessly about all world things, all things, you know, and that connection, it helps to cement the relationships. It helps you to get to know each other and get to appreciate each other for whatever it is that is happening at that time. And you know, the sad reality is those days will go. One day, either won't be around or they won't be around, or it's just not possible because we're in very different environments. But those things matter and those things help with establishing the relationships and the bonds.
Oh,
You want to
Yolanda, just because we want to make sure I have enough time for questions. So,
Sure.
right.
Okay, all right, we're wrapping up. And then you want to establish technology-free zones and times. So perhaps, in that family time, you can just ask that everyone turns their laptops off or has their phone away from the dining table or something like that, right? You also want to leverage, so you want to use technology to strengthen, not replace relationships. So you want to leverage digital platforms to coordinate in-person meetups rather than substituting the real interaction. So when you can do it physically, you do it physically. And then you also want to develop emotional and social intelligence. So you want to learn to interpret tone and body language effectively, even in digital communication, right? All right, and so so it's a call to action. It's about digital communication, as I've said before, being a tool that should enhance, not replace human connection. Be intentional with your time and about maintaining meaningful relationships. You want to make a decision today to take one actionable step to deepen a real world connection with whoever, a colleague, a family member. All right. Where there is no human connection, there is no compassion. Without compassion, then community, commitment, loving kindness, human understanding, and peace all shrivel. Let's heal our hurting world one connection at a time. All right, thank you so much. My apologies. I went over a little bit. I got into my discussion. Sorry, Dr. Parks.
No, 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 nothing to be sorry about. Thank you so much. So much food for thought. So much food for thought. And so we're going to spend the next couple of minutes. If persons have any additional comments, and the lots of comments were going in the chat. I say witnessing excellent presentation. Indeed, excellent presentation. And if you have any specific comments or questions, you could post them in the chat. You can raise your hand and we could ask, give it the opportunity to unmute. But let me raise the first question to Yolanda. Yolanda, um, okay, so they're asking us to put up your contact information again. So you could do that. Just share your screen again, the last slide, Yolanda. And while you do that, here's a question that I have. So like Mike said, a lot of us work on remote teams, yes? And so how do we create human connection in remote teams?
One of the first ways I would say that is to be authentic. So still bring your very genuine, real self into those team meetings. And as hard as you have to work, throw a little fun into it, even virtually. So have a theme day where everybody, just an example, everybody comes in a crazy hat. The hat is what you see um, on, right? Or everybody comes dressed in their pajamas or something appropriately so for work. You still throw a little fun in there, allow persons to express who they are. Perhaps even having just some conversation meetings where persons are able to share their experiences, perhaps about work. Doesn't necessarily have to be about work, but allowing people to, even in the digital sense, still bring their real physical self into that space as well, so that you get the best of both worlds. Sorry, you're muted, Dr. Parks.
Thank you for that. Continue to see a lot of comments in the chat. Basically people are thanking you. Fantastic points, great presentation. I have a follow-up question to the question I just asked, which is when you are a remote team leader, right? And I think when we work together in a physical space, there is so much that we glean from each other, but we don't have that same opportunity when you are leading a team member, you're managing staff remotely. So what particular tips should we, take into account if we, as you supervise staff, the staff works remotely, but you still have that responsibility to develop that staff,
Mhm. So one of the first things I would say is persons respond to genuineness and authenticity again. I think when there are clear instructions as it relates to your expectations of them, your objectives, your goals that you'd like to set as a team, your expectations of how they will help you to achieve these goals, and there is recognition and input and value placed on each of the team members, then it becomes easier for the cohesion to occur between you and the rest of your team. Leading by example is one of those things so that they understand that you are asking for this type of professional attitude, professional behavior, which you are modeling for them so that they too see it in practice. Valuing them for all that they bring to the team. And again, just allowing them to have input and to have very clear instructions on how their individual input will make the team stronger and be able to achieve the goals that are set out. You're muted again, Dr. Parks.
My apologies. There is a question here. Well, Gail is responding to you, and she says yes, set clear goals and objectives and timelines and rules for the team to operate by. Marcy from Belize has a question. What is your advice when you are the one being intentional about ensuring emotional intelligence is being applied, but you're not getting it reciprocated in your circle?
Interesting. I would try and engage, as I said, modeling the behavior that I'm trying to request. I'm hoping it's not the entire team. However, I meet with team members as a team because I want us all on the same page, but I also make time to have one-on-one interactions with the team members because there may be things happening outside of the team which are affecting their behavior, which then affects your team dynamics. And you want to be aware of that. You may need some assistance if it's a bigger problem, if they are just being insubordinate or something, then there are other channels that you need to follow for that. But certainly to try and have an understanding first of what is making them respond in that manner. And then seeing if there are resolutions that you can work on together as the team lead and certainly as a team member.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my experience too, one of the things is that we just kind of assume people ought to be emotionally intelligent. And the truth of the matter is we come from different backgrounds. A lot of people grew up in families and communities where emotional intelligence was not modeled for them. And so, yes, they've come through school system. They are now in your workplaces. They have passed exams. They have degrees and may not have emotional intelligence because it was never really required. They were not taught it. And so it's something that you can actually learn and need to learn. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. All right. So Yolanda, I'm going to invite you to, you can stop sharing so I can go back to sharing my own screen. Thank you. We still have 1 or 2 minutes more that we could take another question. If anybody else has any other question. So let me see if something's coming from the chat here. Let's see. People are mostly saying thank you. Gita is saying she actually prefers digital interaction. That's an interesting one. No, and no judgment here because I personally have gone from, so I do facilitation and training mainly, right? And I have gone from, I didn't like virtual training, and I only liked face-to-face training. And now that I actually do more digital training, I actually, in some ways, have a preference for digital training. Um, but then when I do the face-to-face, I'm like, this is what I miss, you know? And so maybe there's a question out of that. Do we sometimes, because of the digital, become very lazy in our communication? I'm not saying Gail is lazy, but I find something that just easier. Where are we avoiding some of the more some of the difficult that come with that deeper human interaction faced, in a physical space? And
Right.
and while you think about that, because I know time
Mhm.
is now going, and now the questions are coming in.
Yeah.
People are looking at what are some resources to help build your emotional intelligence, and where can people pick up these emotional intelligence skills? So
All right. Well, Dr. Parks is actually a good person to answer those questions for us.
that's
The truth
true.
is, in the Jamaican context, and I suspect it may be across the region, we unfortunately do not have a culture of communication. We have a culture of demonstration. And so when we are feeling something, angry, upset, irritated, hurt, we do not, it is not normal for us to say, Dr. Parks, what you said hurt my feelings the other day. I felt undervalued. And, because of that, I'm now demotivated. The sad truth is it starts with recognizing what those emotions are. If I asked you to describe how you are feeling now, many persons would go, okay, or tired. So we know tired, we know sad, we know happy, but we don't know contemplative, we don't know fair, we're not accustomed to looking at what we are feeling. And if we do not know what we're feeling or understand what we are feeling, then how can we understand why we are feeling it? And then how can we learn any type of skills to control those feelings? So I think it starts with understanding those emotions and feelings so that we can start to explore and talk about and have those conversations about why we're feeling what we're feeling, and then some of the activities that we can do to control those feelings or to enhance the feeling moving forward. And that generally and very, very simplistically is what emotional intelligence is. So it starts with that discussion. But perhaps
Yeah.
Dr. Parks and I will speak more. Maybe that's another PD for another time.
Indeed, indeed. So in our leadership programs that we offer at CARICAD, especially for our longer programs, it all starts with you doing an emotional intelligence assessment.
Right.
And that's because there is such a strong correlation between leadership success and emotional intelligence. And indeed, not just leadership success, but life success. And so a lot of what we cover, is really about how do you lead yourself. And that requires how do you build your emotional intelligence.
That's true.
A lot of our and with that you'd get, of course, a coaching session around that. Some of our programs, like our transformational leadership development program, you're actually assigned an executive coach. And one of the primary roles of the executive coach is to work with you to identify what are those areas of emotional intelligence that need to be developed, and to develop, strategies for doing that. So it's something that you can do, you can develop, but oftentimes requires a support, and requires you to be very intentional. More than anything else, it is that desire to grow in this area that is fundamental. I would also say this too. There are lots of resources available on places like YouTube, etc. A lot of learning resources are freely available. So you want to do some internet search and look out for those kinds of freely available tools as well. So we're really at the end, folks. And I'm seeing all of those comments, fantastic comments. People are adding to answering the question as well. So Yolanda, I will allow you to give a parting thought. What is, if you remember nothing else from today's presentation, what is that thing you want us to remember?
All right, thank you so much again, Dr. Parks. As Dr. Parks just said, and that was my parting thought, it is be intentional. We are human beings. Be present, be available, be open to understanding, to growth. Be. Exist in the present, exist in the here and now, and take no moment that we are given on this planet Earth for granted, whether it's the virtual connections or the human connections, but be present, be available, and be intentional.
Indeed. And so, Yolanda, I want to thank you and I wish for you LOL. Lots of love.
Thank you. I wish you all LOL.
So,
All
our
right.
virtual producer will put a link in the chat for us to just very quickly complete our very short evaluation of our webinar. We always want to know how did it go, and there's a segment for it. Are there other topics that you'd like us to cover in future webinars? So you let us know there. And there it is in the chat, the link to fill out that. If you want to learn more about upcoming webinars, upcoming programs and interventions, please email us at info@caricad.net, or you can visit our website www.caricad.net. And so with that, I want to thank you all. And you earlier you have seen Yolanda's contact information. If you want to reach out to her, you can. If you want to know more about the programs that are being offered, that she has responsibility for, professional training in counseling, etc., you can definitely reach out to her, because I know applications will soon be open for that. And trust me, in this digital world, what we definitely need are lots more professionals with training in these areas. All right. The need is great, and there is a shortage, I can tell you. So, with all of that, folks, it just leaves for me to say thank you all so much for coming. And trust me, I will not look at LOL the same anymore. We wish for you LOL. Lots of love. Look out for our next webinar. Thank you all.
Absolutely. All right. Have a good one. Thanks so much.